Good afternoon and welcome to Sunday Brunch with Higher Heights, powered by the SIP. And your SIP host, Tracy Sturdivant from the League, Adrian Shropshire from Black Pack, Judith Brown Dianis from the Advancement Project, and Fatima Goss Graves from the National Women's Law Center. They've gone fishing. And
left us here.
Just us chickens.
From Higher Heights. It is summer, literally the dog days of summer. And so I'm so happy that many of us are taking time off and reflecting and spending time with our families. But we're here, same place. I'm outside. This is my staycation.
Lovely.
And so welcome to the SIP. This is going to be a powerful, filled hour. We are talking reflections from the Democratic National Convention that just wrapped up, and we are going to talk a little bit about what we're looking forward to or expect for the Republican National Convention. They're usually not back to back, so we are in the middle of the two conventions, and so we're going to talk a little bit about it, but we have two amazing guests that will come on, and you need to invite your crew. So share this feed with your network and invite them over. Everybody was watching. I mean, I think it was like 150 million views across platforms, and expect that will be the same amount of Americans sitting tightly to find out who's vying for their votes and what they've been talking about and how are they tackling this virtually. And so, Adrian, Tracy, what was your thoughts around just how the nights went with a virtual convention?
You know, I had mixed feelings. I put a little Facebook post up saying that I've been to every convention since 2000. My first was in Los Angeles. And, I love the sort of hustle and bustle, signs like my feet hurting, by the end of the night, or dragging bags, or like trying to hustle to get inside so we can get a good seat, looking for food late at night, then trying to find, the bus to get back to the hotel. Like there's a whole sort of process that you go through when you're participating in the actual convention. But watching it home and it being much more accessible, my mother, who's never been to a convention, and being able to call her up and have conversations in between many of the speakers, it just felt as if it were structured in such a way this time that allowed people to actually hear and connect with the speakers, which I thought was interesting. And I think, in the age of COVID, like the years of the type of convention that we had previously, I think those days are gone. And what we just saw, this last week and, this week is sort of ushering in a, new world order when it comes to these type of large scale convening. So overall, I thought that it was good for everyday folks. And I think that the slow build of the sort of the tone that the Democrats set over the week was exciting. The best part was the roll call of states when they did the nomination, that it just felt, it gave me all the feel. So I enjoyed it. What about you, Adrian?
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, I unlike you, I have not been to every Democratic convention. In fact, what your first one, you said 2000, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so your first one, I was outside protesting.
Oh, you were those people.
Credentials. But I enjoyed it. It was, my son went upstairs in the attic and brought down the 2016 signs, Joe and Scranton and Michelle and Barack. I was like, you better take them back up there. This is maybe not the best ones to cap down, not in this year. But we had we had fun. And I think in the same way, Tracy, that you could talk about it. I thought the roll call was great. I thought the attempt to say, to sort of project this is who we are as a nation. Here is the kind of country we want to be. I thought the inclusion of the women MCs was great. I thought Julie Louis-Dreyfus was hilarious. I just think that all of the pieces.
People got mixed feelings about Julie. They got mixed feelings.
I thought she was, because there was no audience or like laugh track that some of the things didn't hit. I think if it was live, it would hit. It was weird because she was by herself.
Also, she was also like making fun of, like, you know, hard to pronounce last names. And so you could either like think that was funny or not. And so I think there was, like, you know, some mixed feelings about that for sure.
Sure. And she was funny. So
Yeah,
I think,
but I think her brand of comedy, she was funny for sure.
For her brand of comedy, yeah. So I thought it hit a bunch of really great notes, and I think things that people wanted to hear and see. And I thought, you know, obviously in addition to the roll call, I thought that Senator Harris's acceptance of the nomination was really spot on. And, you know, I thought it was frankly more than I thought that it could be. I wasn't sure what it was going to look like. So I thought it was great.
I think that's right.
Yeah, I am struggling like we were literally on the ground for 8 days. My body hurts. I had stopped working out. I was eating junk food. Like, I don't even have junk food in my house, but I've somehow found junk food. And I too have been to, you know, conventions, not since 2000, but since 2008, including a Republican convention. And that was the year 2016, where it was with Occupy. So all of the security that was happening at both conventions. And so I think one of the things that we had shared, that we had lots of critiques because we've actually physically been able to go to conventions. But these two conventions, frankly, are the people's conventions. Like, to see my regular everyday friends and family comments that it wasn't them just watching it like historically they would watch. They felt like they were part of the convention. And so I think that is participatory democracy that, you know, frankly, you know, I don't know what's going to happen next week around. I mean, they should, I mean, the production, the producers from the RNC should be like, all right, don't do this, do this. Like, I would assume from a production perspective, they will work out some of the kinks. Sorry, I got a gremlin. Hold on.
I mean, I wonder though, you know, it was a slow build. Let's be clear. Like, by the last night, it was great. The first night, I think everyone was like, who are you?
Yeah, they auto-corrected. They corrected.
They did. It felt that way. I mean, well, I've like I said, I've been to every convention since 2000, but one of our guests who we're about to bring into this conversation, certainly I suspect has been to more for sure. Let's bring in Minyon Moore, who is one of the principals of Dewey Square. Minyon is not only the principal at Dewey, but one of what we affectionately call the color girls, who have been politicking for a hair longer than I have for sure. I'm really excited to hear Minyon's reflections from the conventions. We also have with us Aimee Allison, who's the founder and president of She the People. Both of these women have been trailblazing, amplifying the voices of women of color, Black women in politics for some time. So excited that you all are joining us for Sunday Brunch today. Minyon, talk to us about your reflections from the DNC. You worked inside, outside. Like, what was your take on how the convention
you know, when I was listening to you guys, I was saying to myself, my God, I must be old. And I was almost afraid that I'm going to date myself when I start talking about when I first entered into convention. I call it hell and land. But I started back in '88 when Reverend Jackson did not get the nomination, but the way they negotiated was they negotiated very sizable roles for him and for his delegates, because he had over 1,200 delegates back in '88. And so you all have been a part of the modern day conventions. Just imagine your candidates, their home domicile was a trailer outside of the Atlanta Convention Center. It was not like all these plush suites and rooms. And so you're talking about a grassroots convention. That's where I started. But the most important thing I think that happened in '88 is Reverend Jackson ushered in the rules that allowed Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton, quite frankly, to run on the Democratic ticket, because we ushered in proportional representation, and you did not have to have winner take all, which is a very high hurdle for women and people of color. So then you fast forward, I was a part of that famous walk that President Clinton did in 1996 as his farewell. And that was the day I thought I was going to get fired, because I was working at the White House and I was assigned to the convention, and nobody knew what how the president was going to enter but me and the producer. His name was Harry Thomason. And so that day, our chief of staff said to us on the balcony of President's Hotel, he said, so, okay, tell us, so how is this rolling? We've not heard anything about it. And then when I described this wall, I just saw all these looks on me. I knew I was never going back to the White House. My job was a fold. It was going to be a wrap. But then that turned out to be one of the most spectacular things we could have did for him, because it built up the pandemonium. But then you look at President Obama, who entered and just took us all with the imagination and the hope and the dreams. And I think that's why we are so, I don't think we are critical, but we are so intent on seeing our elected officials at a higher level, because he took us to a place of decency and hope and grandeur. And just imagine living 8 years under that spotlight without coming out the White House without a blemish. Not one blemish. And so that to me was startling. Now, fast forward to what happened just this week. I give them kudos, because I am telling you now, I did hear Tracy say she missed being around. I didn't miss any of it. This is the first convention since '88 that I have actually been able to watch a convention and go, oh, that's what they do. That's what they say. You missed all the speeches, you missed everything. But I knew the convention was somewhat of a success when my mother would call me every night after it went off. Now, she's an 8 o'clock woman. Yeah. Hey, Ma, if you're looking, 8 o'clock woman in the bed every night, 11 p.m. or 10 p.m. She was like, hey, what you think? And I'm like, what are you doing up? And you know, it's taken us some time to get Senator Harris's name correct. She kept trying to say Kamala. I said, please just call Senator Harris.
My mama watching, same thing. I'm like, Kamala, look.
Yeah, like, right. Okay. I tried, I gave up. But I think, you know, in this COVID race kind of environment, and you're right, whoever mentioned the producers, whoever the producers were, they're attached. The slow startup, they did have to bring it up. They did have to bring it up a couple of notches, because Monday was like, oh.
You are like, if it's going to be like this all week.
Like, oh, Lord, but people come back. But there was a bill. And I too loved seeing the ladies out there. I was especially pleased. But, you know, I said something about these women that was in the, that were in the host position. They understood TV. Yes. And the producers understood TV. Right. And so we had to look at nuances of the convention just a little bit differently. But you know, just the aesthetics, I think they did a great job.
You know, it's interesting. We have like a little text thread, and some of our friends work in cable news, and we're like, tell them to hush. We don't need no commentary from the anchors tonight. We just want to hear what they got. Don't cut the commercial. Like, come on, just hush. Let them stand flat-footed and talk. Like, we got a host. That's right. Tracy and Carrie and them. Like, we don't need them talking. So they're like, oh, but regular people don't understand. Well, I guess they do. But it was interesting when AOC, you know, did the nomination for Bernie, and then when Delaware sort of passed, people were like, well, what's happening? I was like, okay, right. Perhaps there is a little explanation that needs to happen for us insiders who understand how conventions happen. Like, there were some moments that needed a little bit of explanation. Aimee, what are your reflections from the convention?
First of all, yes, I am so happy to be here with you all, and really have so much admiration for all of your work. And Minyon, like being an OG, and like being there, giving us that decades of perspective, because my first convention was in 2008. At that time, I was hosting a kind of live national radio coverage with Pacifica Radio. So I experienced most of the convention. It was in Denver. I experienced most of it as a person stuck, you know, kind of in the booth. And I ducked away from my official duties for a luncheon at that time. Steve Phillips, who is a Democratic donor and founded Democracy in Color, and I worked with him for many years. He had this luncheon that had Kamala Harris, had Cory Booker, and had some of the up and comings back then. And the argument was, we people of color, we Black people are coming up as kind of as the leaders, but we need to establish ourselves, and we have this new path. And so I went to this lunch and it was pretty amazing, and then ducked back into my journalist responsibilities. I never forgot what that sense was like. Years later in Philly, last convention, as President Democracy in Color had organized a luncheon on Monday. Now the whole week, as everyone knows, is crazy, all the events, but I figured we did something Monday early, and we said, okay, we're gonna pull together a ballroom of women of color, and we're gonna have on stage women who were basically, our argument was, we're the backbone of the party. We will not be ignored. And just 4 years ago, despite the fact that Black women were just so critical behind the scenes as voters, as making things happen behind the wins, we weren't being acknowledged. And I remember Stacey Abrams being on the stage. I remember Nina Turner being on the stage, along with people like Alita Garcia and Jane Kim. And it was the same story where we are insisting of being recognized. And I'm convinced that if the Hillary Clinton campaign, if it wasn't successful, that we wouldn't have been able to have the opening to change the story about Black women vis-a-vis the party. So this week, you know, my reflection is I was so amazed at how many Black women set the tone. I mean, Michelle Obama, as beloved, I looked at the number of millions of people that compared. She was the most popular speech, above Biden, above Kamala Harris. Everyone wanted to hear. And the way that she was a truth teller, let me tell you how it is. And the way that she set the tone for what the task is ahead, the way that she was like, look, you might want to pack lunch and dinner to make sure to vote, was amazing. The way that Tracy Ellis Ross said, you know, as a Black woman, it's been like this. I just, like, we really we're the center in a way that didn't happen 4 years ago. And when, you know, you all know I live in Oakland, known Kamala Harris a long time, and heard her speech, heard her use the term racial justice. I just can't imagine another convention that was so closely centered around dealing with America's racism and its impact. And I think that that was so significant, such a theme, so powerful. And I had these tickets for one of the nights in Philly to be on the floor, surrounded by all the chaos and the pageantry. And I remember the mothers of the movement coming on stage. And we think about Black Lives Matter and Black women holding this compounded grief of generations. We were on display, but we weren't fully in power and setting the table. And I just felt like this was such a different year for us. So
it was. I think they did the job that they needed to do. And now we're ushering in the RNC convention today. So talk to us, gang, about what you think is on tap. I mean, as I watch some of the commentary, they're like, they didn't talk about the rising crime. They didn't talk about defunding the police. He didn't have a real platform. He didn't talk about issues. Like, that has been some of the narrative that we're seeing. What do you think is going to be front and center in the RNC convention this week? Minyon, what's your take? Oh, Glenda, go ahead.
Those who are watching, what was your favorite moment from last week, and what are y'all anticipating this week? I want to hear what the chat got to say.
Yeah.
Yes. What do you all think the RNC is going to focus on this week?
Well, I think that we're going to see some darkness. I also think I heard Aimee mention Black Lives Matter. I think they are going to be probably unfairly attacked next week. And we're all going to have to, you know, make sure we distinguish between what their movement really is and what it is not. They will be painted as terrorists and the like. I can feel it coming just by having the two speakers that they're going to have. I suspect that we're going to see some attacks on our very own dear Kamala Harris, and we'll have to be ready for that. And I'm hard pressed to. I think the optimism that might come out of the convention is the woman that he released from prison, who's gone on to live a
Allison.
successful life. Because their idea of justice for us is criminal justice. But we live very full lives, and I look at all you beautiful women on this Instagram and Facebook Live and YouTube Live posts, and I look at all these beautiful backgrounds. We live full lives, but they paint us as criminals.
Right.
And so they will talk about how they have helped us become better citizens.
Right.
And that to me is the dark underbelly. But I think we're just going to have to be ready to and the facts. That we're going to be disputing facts all day, every day. And I'm hoping that the networks will be on their job and making sure that they're correcting the facts as well. So
there's actually some work that's happening where folks are trying to petition the networks to actually have the feed where they can minute delay to fact check, because we know for a fact there's going to be all kinds of disinfo flying. Aimee, what do you think is up to bat this week?
Yeah, I mean, I worry about that for sure. I mean, because the disinformation, there'll certainly be the attacks on Senator Harris, I think, which we know, and they'll be despicable. But it is the misinformation and the disinformation around the COVID-19 crisis that is actually dangerous. And so I worry about, the ways in which they're talking about the crisis. I mean, I think the one thing that the Democrats did that was actually quite successful and helpful is that they had a sober assessment of where we are. Like, I know that what's coming out of the Republican Party right now is that it was dark, and they say we live in a terrible country. No, that's actually what Trump said on his inauguration day, and where he said that we Black folks live in hell, or wherever it is he said that we live. So I think that they gave a sober assessment of where we are, and then talked about how we get out of it. I think that what we can expect to see is an inaccurate assessment in many ways, right? Because of course the president has to say that he's done a good job on COVID, and that he's, the economy may have dipped, but it's coming back. He's got to say all these things that we know factually, as Minyon said, are not actually true. And so I worry about the sort of distortion. I worry about the gaslighting, and I worry about the just wrong information that people will take in to be true. I think I was telling you guys, we've been doing some focus groups trying to prepare for the kinds of attacks that are happening, that will continue to happen, both on the top of the ticket and Senator Harris in particular, but that will trickle down to all of the Black women who are running for office, right? And so one of the things that's been really clear is that some of that stuff sets in with Black folks, right? Like that narrative that whatever it is, the various kind of attacks settle in. And I think that people will be watching. I mean, the Republican Party is only about 5% Black folks, right? We know that Trump only had about 6% of the Black vote. And, so we're not talking about huge numbers, but Black people do hear the misinformation, the disinformation. It comes across the YouTube channels that they watch. It comes through Instagram. It comes through Twitch or whatever, right? But I think that there's a way in which I'm concerned about the ongoing sort of various places, where there'll be division. I do think the criminal justice stuff, they'll definitely talk about. I think that part of the problem, as Minyon said, is that for them, criminal justice is individualized and not systemic, right? And so their solutions are only about what they've done for an individual person or what individual people might do. So we won't get at the crux of the problems that we face in the country. And that's also a disservice to not just Black Americans, but to all Americans who have demonstrated over the last 3 months that they want a large conversation, right, about how we fix this stuff and get out of the mess that we're in. I'll give it to Aimee because I know you.
Yeah, no, it's 100. Your observation is like in line with where I am seeing. I see there's 3 things that the RNC and the speakers are intending to do next week. One is they got to throw red meat to their people. And that really is centered on racism. I agree with you, Minyon. I think they're going to focus on Black Lives Matter, try to mischaracterize a movement, which is actually millions of people, multiracial,
That's
and
right.
it was national, and it was urban, suburban, and rural. And they're going to try to mischaracterize it and draw on that racism in order to give motivation to Trump supporters coming out of the week. But I also think they're going to do exactly what you're saying, Adrian, which is they're going to try to exploit the best that they can the coalition of Democratic Party voters between Black and brown. We've seen Trump have commercials, the RNC having commercials trying to pit Latinas against in Spanish against Black women and say, hey, they got something you didn't. You're not being kind of fuel tensions between groups. They're also going to try to exploit this the seeds of doubt that that exist. We have to be honest about around a lot of Black voters and other voters around. Is this going to make a difference? Mm-hmm. Do they have our best interests at heart? Look, Biden said that
he's funding the police means
justice, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And the third is exactly there. If they can continue to push out that lie that vote by mail is, or your vote's not going to count, or it's not legitimate, it will seep into, it might not be all of us, it will seep into this kind of zeitgeist and this fear, like, I guess my vote's not going to count, to try to suppress our vote and to feel discouraged. Because when they call Black women names, terrible names, that we know it's a lie, and yet that because of white supremacy, because of the patriarchy, it does have this effect on us that we have to puts us on the defense and makes us feel bad and less powerful. And so that's their strategy. And I think speaker after speaker, all these criminal speakers, disgusting people, that couple who pointed guns at protesters, they're speaking. All these disgusting, despicable people are going to have a national stage. So I would love for us not to be only in defense, because but I would love us to figure out what our offensive strategy next week is. Right. And because you're not going to take a swing at us, yeah, and destroy what we have going on coming out of a really positive, strong week at the DNC without expecting us to be on the offense. So I'm interested in that too.
Yeah, the politics of fear are going to be on display for sure. Glenda, any final thoughts on this?
I would love to throw out, I don't know if it's in the hot topics, but there's obviously a lot, people are talking about the fact that Trump and Melania Trump will be doing their speeches from the White House. And it's two things. We are in COVID. So y'all told him to stay home and not to. So one, he's doing what America said. I also think obviously the backdrop allows him to be president, the perception of being presidential. And they've done some, renovations of.
They pulled out all the trees and the flowers, so I guess there's a little more room in the rose garden.
Thoughts on the rose garden?
Kind of killed Jackie O's trees.
And the rose garden is not that big, ladies.
It makes me mad. I know it doesn't matter that much, but it still makes me mad.
I know. I mean, that's so ridiculous.
It is
that's props. You got to think about what's coming out their mouth. Props.
I think they did announce that he is planning to speak every day of the convention. Yes.
The question becomes with that, Tracy, is it live? Because I think that actually might be a negative for him, or is it taped? At the end of the day, Joe Biden showed up in every night. So I'm sure it's like Joe Biden was every night. I'm gonna need every night. And the question is it packaged? Because Democrats knew they need to do a package with Joe Biden every day, or is he going to be live every day?
He's going to be live. It's going to be like a coronavirus briefing on.
He never met a mic he didn't like. He's like, give me the mic. Let me rock the mic. It's going to be hilarious. I'm struggling with whether or not I could actually watch all 4 nights, just in terms of mental health and all. To your point, like watching 4 nights of the politics of fear in this moment, like, is that you know, how folks want to spend their time. I think it's going to be interesting. You know, there's always this like ratings race to see. I think people are going to tune in. It's going to be must see TV because they're just curious about how, you know, they're going to show up. I did hear that Mitch McConnell wasn't going to participate. Then he was like, well, I guess I am the majority leader.
Don't run away from your party now.
Oh, no, don't run. That's right. He was like, don't put my name on
Wait, so are you committing to
Huggy Bear.
That's like a boy. Oh, you gonna leave?
Too late now.
He was like, oh no. Well, he was like, well, let me go and send a little tape. I don't need to be there. Don't put my name on this. I got to get reelected. Let's pivot a little bit. You know, we actually started the SIP, Minyon and Aimee, as a way to have a conversation with us, you know, in this moment around COVID, and really wanting to have a platform to talk about issues that are impacting Black women and our families. And so COVID continues to rage, you know, as schools are in the process of opening up and closing at the same time. Right. You know, we're seeing more and more accounts. Like I'm in Georgia now. Some of the schools have opened, some of them are virtual. You know, the places where you know, football teams and, you know, the school sports are opening, where they're already starting to see these numbers, you know, ticking back up. But we're also hearing from the CDC that perhaps the number of deaths may begin to decrease across the US this week. So, you know, I think we're getting conflicting information. You know, we haven't seen Dr. Fauci. Just curious about how folks are feeling about the information that's coming out in recent weeks around COVID. Are we going to see a second wave? What's your reflections on that? Glenda, Glenda and I feel like we're the only people who are still at home.
We are literally the only.
Minyon's with you. I'm with you. Listen.
I talk on the phone like she's like, I'll go out. I am. But you know, I'm quarantining in Connecticut, which is my home state, and so there was an uptick in Danbury, Connecticut, right? So it's on national news. People are like, "Where's Danbury, Connecticut?" Right? It's in Southern Connecticut. And they had they tripled their numbers in 2 weeks, and it is directly connected to travel. They started youth sports again, and people hanging out, having barbecues. And so they literally, the mayor of this little small, it's actually the second largest city in the state, but for the rest of y'all, little small town, they're telling people to stay home and to participate in tracing, because we need to figure out why was there a spike from 78 to almost 200 in a week. So I'm still inside. I'll call Minyon every day and she'll keep me company.
I'm in the house. And you know, when I'm listening to my friends, they're like in there, you know, I will my sojourn is to the store because I don't want to be a hermit. You know, I'm comfortable being in the house anyway, but this has really become in the house.
Right.
But I'm like, our mayor, frankly, has done a very good job with keeping us informed. You know, I've even taken a test being in the house, but I've taken a test when I've had to go out, because she's done a good job of letting us know where we can go have tests done, and we get them back pretty quickly. Happy to know that I was negative. You know, it's not that I was thinking about anything, but, you know, I think we have to still encourage our people to go get tested. You know, go in those lines. These mayors are on the front lines trying to make sure they have every tools available for our people in particular who are disproportionately hurt. And I think it will level itself out because all of us are in the house.
Right.
And we're telling all of our family to stay in. You know, my mother, I keep going back to her, who loves to do her little sojourn to the store. I have to ask her the same question. You got on your gloves, you got on 2 masks, you got on this, you got on that, because, you know, you run the risk of keeping older people locked up.
That's right.
And that to me is almost as scary as putting them in the middle of COVID. So I think we just have to keep educating our people, especially as we march towards November 3rd, because that's going to be the day for us. And we're hoping that, you know, people take the necessary precautions. We are actually doing the things we have to do in these next several months to educate them. And I pray to God that CDC story is correct, because, you know, Aimee said something, and I'll just end on this point. She said something earlier about our grief. And I was watching a show when COVID first hit us, and they said the reason why our white counterparts don't understand our grief, especially with George Floyd and COVID, is because we grieve as a community and we don't grieve individually. And so all of this pile up has also turned into, we have to check the mental health of our people, because the grief is so great and so ingrained in us. It's whether we're losing people in COVID who we can't even say goodbye to, or whether we are looking at George Floyd get his neck crushed by a police officer, somebody we were trained to protect and serve. So I think so much of this, that's why we're all just scrounging for hope anywhere we can get it.
Yes.
And so I think even as dark as times are, we have to figure out how we can reach out and be a blessing to people as well.
Adrienne, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I hope that they're right. And I've been happy to, trust the scientists and the experts throughout this process. So I hope that's right. But my worry is that, we're still not through the first wave. And so hopefully this gets us to where we're crusting out of that first wave, and the worry is, when does the second wave hit us? And that's my concern. And obviously we've done these shows about school, and I have a high school student and I have a college student, and so all of that is disconcerting. I'm at home. I do I go to the store. That's all I do too. But I worry about whether or not we're prepared for that next wave, because we haven't been able to get out of this one. To get prepared for it. And I think that we also know, as Minyon said, we got to get to November 3rd, but the election for us this year is really in October, right? That's when the election is happening. And that could be when the next wave starts. And so and that just compounds my despair around the attack on the postal system, because that was the way, right? That was a way for us to sort of get ahead in this election that is really going to happen in 3 waves, right? End of September, October, and then election day, November. And so that's, I feel a lot of anxiety, as everyone does, right? About how we get out. And again, I would say that related, I know we're out of the election section of this conversation, but I want to bring it back. So
we're never out of the election section.
There's the down ballot challenge that I feel like we have. And that includes all the Black women who are running for office, that normally we have more time to talk to voters about those down ballot races so they don't roll off. But if I get my ballot, September 9th, and I got to fill it out because I know I got to get it back in because the mail ain't working right, I may not have gotten all the information I need to get about the people running for state house or the people running for statewide offices. And so I worry, my anxiety is that is our ability to get that information quickly to folks, so that when they take our advice and send them ballots back right away, so that they're not, putting themselves in risk in terms of getting sick, that we haven't gotten them the information that they need.
Well, the postmaster, for those who watched his testimony to the Senate committee the other day, said that he had no idea that the mailboxes and the equipment was being removed, and don't worry about it. We're not going to replace them. We don't need them anyway. And so we're like, well, wait a minute. You didn't know they were gone, but you also don't think we should take he's like, oh, no, we can handle it. And I promise. And so, I know that the House, has approved this money to fund, I think, about $25 billion for the post office, but we don't know where that's going to go. And so I think that they didn't realize that they weren't just messing with ballots, they was messing with veterans, little chicks, and grandma's medicine.
That's
so
right.
walking it back.
The members that live in and represent rural areas, like, people don't recognize, as much as you go, oh, everyone's using Amazon and FedEx, that the post office is a lifeline. My grandfather was a postal worker. He came back from serving in the Korean War and worked in the postal service until he retired. And so it is not only an employer, it is the lifeline. So I have an uncle and we are the same age. My grandparent, I have an uncle that's the same age anyway. And
his story.
And meanwhile, I'm the oops me last baby. So we won't. So at the end of the day, my uncle Brian, or his son, who is a 15-year-old cancer survivor who's still going through chemo, who is legally blind because of his cancer, his lifeline is the postal service to get his medication because he's a single dad and he doesn't want to leave the home because his child is immune compromised, and his medicine has already slowed down and is not on time. That is the stories and the conversation people don't recognize. Like, regardless if you're trying to mess with the elections, you're messing with people's lives.
That's right.
Right.
My first job was at the Postal Service. My very first job, actually, second job, but that was the job that helped put me through college.
That's right. Those were good jobs.
Good union job.
Ooh, God, good jobs.
Right. Those are good, and they're still, frankly, good jobs. Even despite, I've seen, you know, have some postal worker, you know, primarily Black women, right, who still working at the post office, and them talking about what this experience and the pressures that they're, you know, under in this moment, but also knowing just like how important it is for them to be able to like step up and do their jobs, because, you know, democracy is on the ballot and in the mailbox. So, you know, we've been talking about mask or mail, and I think, you know, Michelle Obama the other night was like, ain't no mail. I'm gonna need y'all to put on a mask. And I'm gonna need you in them lines. I know they're gonna be lines, but I'm gonna get this early vote together.
Which was opposite of how we were
talking about
as organizers trying to communicate with our people. To your all point, and Adrienne, to your point, I want to say something about caring for ourselves and each other. Bay Area, Oakland was one of the first cities to have a lockdown, and it never opened back up. We still can't go to the hairdressers. We can't go. I mean, my dental office just opened a couple of weeks. I mean, it's things have been locked down. People are wearing masks here, but we're still getting more and more cases. So we have this fear everywhere. We have isolation. My dad lives about 40 minutes away in a town called Antioch, and he's in a senior home, and we haven't been able to go in. So I try to call my dad on Facebook Messenger, and sometimes he remembers how to answer it, and sometimes I can't talk to him and can't. And he's 84, and I miss my dad, and I don't want his isolation in this, given that it's looking like another year of it. And I have been feeling the pressure myself. I mean, the long-term stress and the fact that every Black woman I know feels the responsibility of what's happening. We knew what was happening then, and we're still in the front lines now. And it takes a personal toll, especially because I haven't personally, I'm a person who loved to be in the gym, and I haven't seen my trainer, I haven't seen the inside of a gym in so long. So I'm just saying that I know we have a job to do. We will do it in the next 70 days. I don't think it'll be over on election day. I think we're going to be fighting for a while. And just a note to take care, everybody take care of yourself best you can. For me, that looks like me starting a juice. I'm just drinking celery juice in the morning.
God.
Celery juice does not taste good, but I hear that it helps like a detox and deal with the inflammation. I'll do it. I had a woman I admire who helps with, she's kind of a natural path. Great. Celery juice, take time, put my phone away, even if it's an hour or two. And it's hard for me to justify this in the middle of the craziness, but just for all you beautiful, amazing leaders and everyone who's listening, please take care of yourself, because we need to take care of ourselves and each other. And we're not in a position to do that if we're stressed out and burned out and sick. So
I just want to interrupt. Can I interrupt her for just 1 second?
No, go ahead.
Because not only when I posted the event, one of my best friends called me and said, "Oh, I can't wait to see Aimee." I'm like, "What? What about me?" So I'm like, "Okay, I'm gonna let that pass." I was going to give him a real official shout out on here, but I'm not going to embarrass him. So he did a put down on me. But secondly, I'm looking at Miss Beautiful as I can't wait to get to my potato chips. Just joking, but seriously. But I appreciate the fact that she has really zeroed in on the other aspect of what's happening with all of us during COVID and being isolated. You really do have to pay a lot more attention to yourself, because I'm noticing things about myself now. Every time somebody gives a good idea, you know, I'm going on the celery juice tomorrow. That will be my outing today. I will figure it out. Thank you, Aimee.
You're gonna be going around like, do you have celery juice?
Wait, 1 week is vinegar, The next week is celery, whatever. I'm still
Whatever.
alive, so
Yep.
I'm going for it. But thank you, Aimee.
I love it. It's interesting. I've been sharing with a couple of friends. Like I have gone down this rabbit hole looking for Clorox wipes. Y'all laughing. I ain't seen a Clorox wipe since March.
I have some extra. I'll send you some. Send me your address.
Wait, honey, listen. So I moved from New York to Atlanta, so I went from one hot spot to the next, and I've got a toddler. So like, I need a wipe. And so I stumbled upon this Facebook group called Where to Get It, Clorox wipes and Lysol. And it's about 50,000 people in this group who constantly post links of like when things are up on Walmart or Target or Amazon. And I'm down a rabbit hole, y'all. I'm down, like they ain't missed a beat. They literally have stockpiles. So if you have been looking for these, I'm like, Mama, I got you 2 bottles of Lysol. Like I'm like,
wait, hey, tell me where the Lysol are, because I'm looking for the Lysol
see what I'm saying? They call that the unicorn.
I am looking for the Lysol spray.
They all got the spray. I got like about 6 bottles of Lysol spray coming to the house.
You about to be that person that's the toilet hoarder.
No, well, didn't you hear Aimee? Didn't you hear? We could be, we got to be prepared for our mental health.
I was just thinking about, I would love the Facebook group for the, I have the term self-care, but it is a thing, it's like you got to take care of yourself. One of the things that one of my girlfriends turned me on to, so marijuana is legal in California. I don't know about all your states, but I never smoked. I was not a big pot smoker. Never was into it, but they have these gummies. They don't make you high. They don't make you high. But they have the part.
They're anti-anxiety gummies. Yeah.
You take the gummy and you relax, and then you can go to sleep. And I was like, is this okay? Should I do this? And I was like, oh, I like the gummies.
Oh, God.
They all of these links in the chat box.
Better than a sleeping pill.
I'm
walking crazy. The gummies relax me.
Yes.
Oh, well,
Wow.
see, we'll have to make sure we put the links to all of these things
Listen,
In the chat.
in the
That
chat
is
box.
hilarious.
Well, there have been a couple of other hot topics. Usually, Minyon and Aimee, we also talk about what's happening in popular culture here. I don't know if you all are fans of the show Sweetie Pies that airs on OWN. It used to be a show about a woman who had a soul food restaurant in St. Louis, and it was followed her and her family and sort of their trials and tribulations. And it has come out this week that one of the members of the family who was on the show, Tim, ended up being arrested for a murder of his cousin, Andre, who was also on the show. He was, a young man who had some issues, and he apparently put a hit out on him because he had purchased a policy on him, and it's just now coming to light. And so it is like, it's a big dust up in, the land of old for folks who love this show, love watching sort of the trials and tribulation of this family. And folks are just shocked. Glenda, are you a Miss Robbins fan?
So yes, of the show, I did go and ate there, and I wasn't a fan, but sure. So
Miss Robbie, not on the food.
St. Louis city treasurer Shashura Jones, like, I got a spot for you. So she turned me on to some other spots, but it is, ladies, this is like really reality TV. It's mob-like. It is not what it's not what Black folk do out in the light. I was shocked.
So was Tim the son?
Her son.
Yes.
It was Miss Robbie's son. Yes.
The one that she put over all of her empire.
Yeah. Well, they had some beef too, because she put him over the empire and he started opening up other restaurants without her knowledge. And so then she sued him. So I don't know if this was all in the same period of time, but he had ended up putting out, almost like $500,000 policy on his cousin.
The little kid, the little kid. Oh, Jesus Christ, for real?
Yes. Hate to have that little boy killed, and it all came to light. So, and he never got anything.
So was he, okay, did I miss something? Did Andre get killed?
Yes. 2 years ago. They put a hit out on him.
Is that why they took the show off?
I don't know if that's ultimately why the show ended, but he passed away about 2 years ago, and so Tim just got arrested this week. And now the FBI has been sort of piecing this together.
And Miss Robbie just, because she was in that singing group, and she
Yes.
had to work her way back, and that was just a nice family show. Oh,
It was a nice family show. It just goes to show you, like,
so Tracy didn't know Minyon watched the TV, so y'all can go.
So we can
I am okay. So people laugh at me. I go from, because I love like family type stuff. So I go from all white Hallmark, which in this environment ain't cool, to trying to figure out, okay, when is Greenleaf coming back, or when
it's
is
not coming back. Greenleaf is done. Greenleaf that was the series.
I know that's gone.
But they're gonna do a spinoff though with Lady May. That's in the works right now.
Oh, so it was Lady May.
Yeah,
Oh Lord, I was trying to figure out who it was. Now I did watch some, I guess I can't call it trash, but I did watch some real bad TV, but it became very interesting. Was that Dallas thing?
I just couldn't get into that one.
I know it was very, very elitist, and you had to really go past 3 or 4 episodes in order to see if there was any kind of plot line. And when I tell you it was mindless, it was mindless.
But I'm a big fan of The Chi, which you think is your hometown. It's great.
I haven't even watched that.
By Lena Waithe. Oh, you should watch that one.
Okay.
You can get into that. I think we're in season 2 or 3
But
right
you're taking
now.
notes. Let me know.
That's on
I have to take
Showtime.
notes, Tracy. I never even heard of these things. I just finished Insecure, 3rd season.
I gotta start
great.
that too.
They have been nominated for Emmys, which is like
Amazing.
fantastic. We're
It's
very
amazing.
excited. They had a great season. The other show that I'm at a rabbit hole in right now is called P Valley. And it's about a strip club in Mississippi in the Delta. It's amazing. One of the lead characters, I went to high school with him, so this is his breakout role. Very excited. So P Valley, it's a great.
Anybody watch The Crown?
My brother is binge watching it. He's a big royal, and so he didn't see something we did, Tracy. I think it was something we did with Higher High. I did a Good Morning America hit last Saturday. He's like, I'm sorry, I missed it. I was up until 4 o'clock watching The Crown.
The Crown, baby, honey. Anybody think that queen is not made of something?
Listen,
I mean, honey, it is definitely duty over family for her.
Well,
and I don't know, Meghan Markle might have watched that before she went over there. It might have helped her out a little bit.
Speaking of Meghan Markle, she's been making the rounds. She's been
in a bust out role.
She is out in these, like, talking about elections and women's empowerment streets. I just saw her this week. She did a chat with United State of Women and talking about women's empowerment and the sort of run up to the anniversary of the 19th Amendment. So she and Harry, they have freed themselves.
They're making the waves, honey.
They're out here using their platforms. I know, Adrienne, you'll appreciate this conversation. Adrienne is a Meg the Stallion fan. And, for those who have not been tracking this, Meg the Stallion, who is a hip hop artist, she just released a song a couple of weeks ago that's like up the charts.
We can't say the name on the set.
Cardi B called WAP. If you don't know what WAP means, you should go Google that. Oh, that's a whole other conversation. But right in the midst of this, it was reported that she had been shot by another hip hop artist, Tory Lanez, who she never confirmed nor denied whether or not he shot her. She, there was a whole dust up about it, and then she kind of swept it under the rug. And then ultimately, she had been getting a lot of pressure from, folks in the Twitter sphere, and frankly, him, to like keep her mouth shut. And so she finally this week did an Instagram live where she talked about, one, why she never reported him in the first place. And she talked a lot about just the inequality in the criminal justice system, and saying, like, I didn't want to report him because I didn't want the police to come and kill us, kill him and or us. So, here it is, a Black woman who was in harm's way, who was putting this man before her own safety, and now feeling like she had to come out and defend herself in this moment, when in fact she kept sort of asserting that, like, I did this to save him, I did this to protect him, and you're continuing to like make these threats towards me. Now I got to tell the world what's going on.
And lie, right? And
And
lie. I mean, I think the first part of the first story that we heard, which, well, I was like, oh wow, that's kind of crazy, but whatever, and moved on, was that she stepped on glass. Right. That she was, the reason why she was bleeding is because she had stepped on glass and cut her feet. So so instantly, and this is the thing that I think she was sort of putting out there that people have latched onto, is that in the moment of crisis and trauma, in her mind, she knew the danger that she faced, that he faced, and that everyone else in the car, and she protected them all instantly protected them all. And then the story evolved over time, but she still was trying to look out, right? And then him and his publicist or whatever, right, his PR folks have just been out here lying on her. And she said, I tried to spare you. And now I can't anymore because you all have me out here like this. And so we need to now just tell the truth.
It's not even.
At first I said to myself, now this man's shooting somebody in the foot. He ain't Harriet Tubman. Somebody said, before I let you be a slave, I'll shoot you in the foot. And I'm like saying to myself, so why is he shooting her in the foot?
In the foot, that's right. That's right. What was that about?
Foot.
That's right. That's right.
And that to me also says something else psychological about it. I will never let you go.
That's right. We don't talk about the domestic violence. I mean, this is a domestic violence incident.
Yeah.
They hasn't been named that, and particularly for this generation and how they deal with it, and particularly the pressure that Black women are under to not report, to underreport things that are happening. That was a domestic violence dispute that she decided that it was better to not put him in harm's way in this, sort of climate around dealing with the police versus her own physical safety. And so to see her sort of step out and still, have people both in the hip hop community and other influencers, so now she's a snitch. Like I have seen, some Black men like Michael B. Jordan and others were like, I stand with Megan. And I'm like, is this what we're focusing on right now? But I think it's really important as we talk about the election and mask and, all of this, like this is what's happening in popular culture. This is what the kids.
It's really important, Tracy, because if Black women aren't allowed to stand up for our own health and our safety and our own sanctity of our own bodies and be protected against violence, and we can't speak to that, and we're silenced in that way because the system that we're in doesn't allow us to have justice and protect ourselves. I mean, this is terrible. Because Black women are the group that are most vulnerable to domestic violence and to murder by partners. Yeah. So there has to be a space for us to be able to tell the truth, and we have to defend our right to do that because it affects us, and we have to demand changes in the system. Because you don't want to call the police, all that, because of what they do to Black people en masse, but you also have to be protected. And so we're put in a terrible situation. She's shot and she's got to protect the person who did it. So
but, part of that too is the mere notion that we have been airbrushed out of history, airbrushed into history, airbrushed into the thinking. And there is to me a still a space that we have yet to define as it relates to Black women. There is a blank canvas for us. They don't know how to treat us. They don't know how to see us. They don't know how to look at us. So we constantly have to paint this picture of who we are because we deserve happy endings, but we don't get the happy endings because we're always fighting on some front. So it's left up to us to just fill in the blanks of this canvas. Megan couldn't get straight with the narrative because she doesn't know the narrative.
Right.
She doesn't know who we are as a people. She doesn't know what that means to stand up in a time of crisis. So I would just leave that for the next session.
Yes.
Y'all talk about painting the canvas of Black women.
Oh, right. That's a word. That's a word. I mean, well, on a high note, for those of us who are Monica and Brandy fans, they've got a versus battle. It's finally, the deal has been sealed. Tomorrow night, they're doing a versus, and they're calling this a celebration, which I think is good because it's like I got Brandy over Monica, which I do. But I do think
did you see, Tracy? They have one with Monica first. They have
one with, that's right. That's right. I mean, I think that this is going to be such a celebration. And I think that both of these women, like to your point, Minyon, have been through so much in their lives that it's going to be a really interesting conversation to see them talk about like the trajectory and the arc of where these songs, which are like, you know, the sort of fabric of a lot of Black women's lives. I'm really excited to see like where the conversation goes tomorrow. So you all tune in.
Watch that one, Tracy.
Brandy versus Monica tomorrow night. I'm handing over to Glenda to wrap us up.
Well, this was a great Sunday brunch powered by the SIP, and we're so excited that Minyon Moore and Aimee Allison joined us. They will be back. I mean, you've seen, we've been stockpiling like the lineup of amazing Black women, thought leaders, elected officials, policy analysts that will carry you through the election and beyond. So meet us back on Wednesday. We are talking the 19th. Amendment, and then we'll be back next Sunday for Sunday Brunch. You have been watching Sunday Brunch with Higher Heights, powered by the SIP, and your SIP host are Tracy Sturdivant from the League, Adrian Shropshire from Black Pack, Fatima Goss-Graves from the National Women's Law Center, Judith Brown-Dianis from the Advancement Project Action Fund. They'll be back next week. I might be off. Tracy might be off.
We might all be gone.
We might be off. But someone will be here on duty to carry this conversation. All we need you to do is to invite your crew to participate in these conversations. Thank you for joining us.
Be well.
Good one.
Bye.